Welcome to the world away.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
Welcome back to The World Awaits. How's your week been, Kirsty?
Oh my God, I just do not know where the weeks are going at the moment. I can't believe it's already August. And I was thinking about this. And did you know that means after this month, because I'm actually going to Rome next month, if you didn't hear me talking about it last episode, if you were listening in, it's actually only 4 months until Christmas after this month. It's unbelievable. So I know it's like, where the hell did the year go? So this week we have some really exciting news about a new project that Belle's working on. But before we get to that, we're going to chat about the hot topic that's been on every traveller's lips this week, which is about Jetstar's new baggage changes.
Yes, it is top of mind, not least because I'm actually flying to Sri Lanka with Jetstar in a couple of weeks' time, or next week, on their new non-stop service. So I have been watching this quite closely. What the changes mean is that from the 2nd of February next year, there will be no 7-kilo weight limit on your carry-on bags. But, and there's a very big but, you have to pay to put your bags in the overhead bins.
Yeah, so luckily you won't be affected, Belle. But basically, along with everything else you have to pay when you fly on Jetstar, you now have to pay $25 per flight to put a bag in the overhead luggage compartment.
And Jetstar said in that feedback had shown that having bags wait at the gate and then struggling to find room in the overhead lockers were the most stressful parts of the airline experience. I don't know, for me, the most stressful part is getting to the airport on time.
Yes, and they say the changes will allow for better use of overhead locker space. Well, obviously, because you have to pay for it, so there won't be as many. Streamline boarding and help more flights depart on time. So what are your thoughts about all that, Belle?
Well, of course, I was outraged like everybody else at the beginning, but I read a really interesting piece of analysis from airlineratings.com, which is that independent Australian aviation watcher, and I really rate them for their expertise. Their take on it was that Jetstar has actually done travellers a favour, and that is that it has switched from thinking about weight, which is, how heavy is your laptop, right, to a more egalitarian size. So on the base fare, you have one under-seat bag that measures 40 by 30 by 20 centimetres. So there's no more guessing. There's no more running the gauntlet at the gate, only to find that you're 400 grams over the limit. And I have had that happen. So they're saying, and they're saying, what they're saying too is that it is the most tardy of the major Australian airlines. So it runs at only 75% on-time departures, behind Virgin, which is at like 80%, and Qantas at 87%, so that it can only speed things up. And the other point that Airline Ratings made was that it stops cabin crew from being enforcement officers at the gate, and it just simply dissipates all of that conflict. So look, I have to say it's pretty terrifying when they come down the queues as you're boarding with their scales. It's like, oh my gosh, do my scales at home match Jetstar scales, right?
I know, right? But the interesting thing is that Jetstar is actually the only one who does that. So every time you fly any other airline, they don't come down there and hold up the process So actually, by saying that it's going to speedline the process, well, that's already happening with other airlines anyway. We all manage on other airlines to do it. So why is it so different for Jetstar? And I'm with you. It's an awful feeling when you come down and you're ripping out your book and your water bottle to tuck under your arm because you're so scared that you're going to be over. I have to say, when I heard this, I sort of thought it was interesting because I actually find it really incredibly frustrating when people bring really big bags, those hard case bags, and shove them up in the locker, and you've got like a smaller bag, and quite often I travel with my camera, and so I'm putting them up in the locker and worried that they're going to be completely crushed by these giant bags. And people are clearly overweight. I mean, it's obvious that you're overweight, right? So, I mean, I don't know. It seems that it could be more sensibility around it when we happen to manage it, and sometimes in other airlines when they have sort of similar restrictions. I don't know. In one way, I think they shouldn't. The charges are a lot when you're already. It's not just that charge though. It's the fact that you book a Jetstar flight and then everything they add on can double the cost of your flight. So actually, maybe you better look at flying Qantas or Air New Zealand or someone else initially anyway, even though obviously Qantas is Jetstar anyway. But there you go. So now, Belle, we are going to move on to your exciting news. So please do spill the beans.
Gosh, Kirsty, this is a major milestone for me. Kind of like your two-book deal, right? So I have teamed up with British adventure company Untamed Borders, and we are together leading a trip to Algeria. Oh, be still, my beating heart.
Exciting! It's so
I
exciting.
know. It's incredible. So what'll happen is Untamed Borders, which does, we've actually had them on the show to talk about Afghanistan in the past. They started off basically as being like fixers for journalists, getting people into places like Syria and Afghanistan and those places way off the beaten track. And then it evolved into a tour company. So they are super experienced at operating in such environments. So they're doing the ground support. They've got their guides. Of course, we've got local Algerian guides when we're down in the Sahara. I can't even say that without saying it. Sahara, right? Then, they've got local Touareg guides because Algeria has this incredible history of, it's got a French colonial history. It's got its Touareg or its Bedouin nomad history further down south. And we're going to be exploring all of that. So what it means is that I'll be running these workshops in the most incredible locations around the country. We'll be in the Sahara, we'll be in the Kasbah, in Algiers. We're talking walled fortress cities and big, big, bright orange deserts. Just some of the oldest cities in known civilization. The history of Algeria is incredible. So also, tiles, Kirsty, a lot of, all of that beautiful tiles, because don't forget that Algeria is right beside Morocco. Morocco, absolute tour powerhouse. Tunisia on the other side, where I was last year, is also evolved on its tourism. Algeria, not so much. Terrible infrastructure for tourism in that you're still going to send your passport off to the embassy in Canberra, which kind of blows my mind a bit. But the thing is that they've had all of this petrol wealth, so they haven't had to look at tourism the way that other countries have done.
When you say you'll be holding workshops with travel writers, so what will you be doing? Will you be sitting people down like actually on location and like sitting in a location explaining to them how to maybe look at something differently, how to write about it differently, like while you're looking at a landmark, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be on site in places like in the Kasbah and in the Sahara, and we're going to be talking about about how you use your words to describe a destination. About tapping into your senses when you're traveling, the kind of thing that when you've been doing it as long as we do, it's almost instinctive as well. You're listening. What are you hearing? What is the food that you're eating? Just learning to write, to be more descriptive, to be a travel writer, to look for the hooks in it. It doesn't mean that, you're going to snag that Walkling or that Pulitzer or anything like that, but it does, it's about observing more deeply, and you can bring that into your writing as well. So, but yes, absolutely on site, spend the morning going through a market, have an hour in the afternoon talking about it. Spend the day, because two of the nights are actually camping in the Sahara, which I'm just beyond excited about.
Amazing.
Yeah, and seeing some of these incredibly ancient rock paintings that are hidden in this desert. And the incredible thing is that there's so few people going there. I've got to say, BBC Travel did nominate it last year as one of its top countries to visit, kind of like a go before everybody else does sort of thing. So that's what we're
Ah.
doing, and that's why I think it's going to be such an amazing experience.
It will be amazing. And like you said, not only do you learn about some of the skills from someone with decades of experience as a travel writer, but also it gives you a new way to even just look at somewhere that you're traveling and really take it in more deeply. Amazing. So when is it all happening, Belle?
So it's a 12-day trip. It is running from the 14th to the 25th of March next year. So if you are interested, jump on my website, globalsalsa.com, where you can find the itinerary and the details. And you can also hit me up if you've got any questions. But I am beyond excited for this one, Kirsty. So come to Algeria.
If you'd like to help support our production costs, you can buy us a coffee at coffee.com/theworldawaits. That's ko-fi.com/theworldawaits, so we can continue to bring you inspirational travel interviews with the world's best.
This week, I'm chatting to Melbourne stylist Sally McKinnon. Look, Kirsty, I've been following her online on Instagram. I just love her accessible but thoughtful fashion styling. She has also put that thought into travel packing, which she wrote about extensively in her book Styled. So she's going to talk us through how to pack the perfect travel wardrobe. And I cannot wait to hear some of the tips. They are incredible. Take a listen. Sally, welcome to The World Awaits. So exciting to have you on the podcast.
I'm very excited to be on your podcast, Belle.
Well, I feel like I've got this strange affinity with you because I've been following you on Instagram for quite some time. You're based in Melbourne. I'm based in Melbourne. And I've been living on your Instagram trying to up my styling game. So just tell us a little about how you got into the world of styling, because it wasn't something you were born into.
No, it wasn't something I was born into. I was really born into a life as a teacher, as an educator. I followed my mum's footsteps, studied to be a primary school teacher, so did that for 13 years. Really didn't think that I would be doing anything other than teaching. I mean, back then I'm 54, so, going through high school in the 80s, uni in the 90s, jobs like personal styling, or even like a lot of these kind of creative jobs that I feel like are very common today, just weren't even around. I think it was still very traditional for you to, if you did go to uni, maybe as a woman, you followed still certain pathways, teaching, nursing, or, certainly it wasn't like we're talking about the 1940s, but it was still fairly traditional. Lots of my friends at the end of high school left and did apprenticeships. Others, then there was a handful of us who went to uni. And then really, I decided in 2006 that I had had enough of being a primary school teacher. I could see the system shifting, which was a good prediction because it certainly has. And I realised that the personal styling industry, which I was obviously always very, comfortable with, knowledgeable about, obviously had a great interest in fashion and shopping. I just thought, wow, I reckon I could do something like that. And I also have to preface this by always saying, and, I mention it in my book, that it was really because of Trinny and Susanna back in at that time having their TV show What Not to Wear, that really brought it to the fore that personal style was accessible, or could be accessible, or at least applicable to everyday people like you and me, not just celebrities, famous people, rich people. And so I would watch those shows and everything just made so much sense to me in terms of the styling advice that they were giving. And obviously back then it was very much focused around dressing for body shapes and flattering and all that kind of stuff. And that was just how it was back in the day. And that's kind of how I just decided, you know what, I was in my mid-30s. I couldn't see myself teaching for another 15 years. And I just gave it a crack, and I came up with a business name, Styled by Sally, and I took out an ad in a local paper in Melbourne, and the phone started ringing that day. There was no website. It was all pre-social media. You know what I mean? And yeah, the rest is history.
It's amazing. But I've got to say, what I loved about reading in your book was, and which you are very modestly failing to mention, is situations where people recognized your style, like when you were walking through New York as a backpacker,
Yes.
dressed up,
Yeah.
and someone mistakes you for a stylish New Yorker. And I think
I know.
I'm just popping that in there because congratulations, you.
Yeah. And look, and to be honest, that was a really pivotal moment in my new career. That moment really made me stop and think, because I was on long service leave. I was traveling on my own for 6 months. I was in New York. I had that comment thrown to me by a New Yorker, thinking that I was from New York just by how I was dressed, having lived out of a backpack for nearly, at that point, close to 4 months.
Amazing. Amazing.
I just thought, okay, Sally, this is your sign. This is your sign. So I literally emailed my school principal that night and said, obviously, I'm coming back next year. Can I work a 4-day week? And that's when I slowly started to build up the business over the next 2 years.
That is incredibly flattering, because I've got to say, when I've lived out of a backpack, I look like I've been dragged backwards through a bush. So as a consequence, there's a decade of me with no photos. So I am steering this conversation toward traveling and traveling stylishly.
Yeah.
Because that is something that I've personally struggled with. But so when I go through your Instagram, I've been fascinated about how you've approached travel and packing for travel, and packing for a trip. You've been trialing a lot of methods and strategies. So
I have.
hit me with some of your key strategies. Can you please transform my life? That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, like I must admit, I used to be a chronic overpacker, and I literally just got back from a long weekend in Tasmania, in Hobart. So I was just having this conversation with my girlfriend how, just like she has with other aspects of her life, there's that, and I was just trying to think of the term, Belle, analysis paralysis. Have you heard that? Where you get so caught up in the details that you're just paralyzed, you can't think. And I used to be exactly like that with packing. I just would just get so confused, not know what to take, and then of course go on holidays, take things that were either inappropriate or didn't feel quite me. And it was a really stressful time. So before I discovered the method that I've been trialing more recently, like literally just this year, I first started breaking it down to 3 colours. So the first time I felt like I really nailed a great kind of, I'm just talking like a long weekend travel capsule, was breaking it down to 3 colours. And that's almost something that is a really easy starting point for most of people to give a go, because when you look in your wardrobe, there will absolutely be a chorus of at least 3 predominant colours in your wardrobe. And we buy colours, be it black, be it blue, red, whatever it is, we buy colours because we feel good in them. So it doesn't matter if your 3 colours, Belle, are black, navy, and cream, for example, or a really muted classic colours. But alternatively, it doesn't matter if your 3 common colours are red, purple, and orange. You're buying those colours for a reason. So by narrowing it down to 3 colours, which essentially is what kind of any packing method is about, it's about narrowing it down and kind of getting rid of all the noise, which is what I had the problem with, and kind of giving you a place to start. So there are absolutely travel packing methods, and I'll tell you about my latest one. But the thing that you mentioned you've got my book, and there is a whole chapter in my book about traveling, is that what I've also learned that has been an absolute game changer is to think about the holiday that you're going on. So what kind of holiday are you going on? So I'll use this as an example. So if I'm going to somewhere like New York, I'm pretty much going to have the same kind of holiday that I would have if I was holidaying in Melbourne. Going to great restaurants, going to bars, going to some galleries, going out for breakfast, going for shopping. So you ask yourself, Sally, would I wear sneakers? So I'm just talking about myself, okay, because it's my style. Would I wear sneakers around town in Melbourne or to do this or to do that? Or would I wear a puffer jacket? Or would I wear leggings? And the answer is no. So fuck no. I would not wear those things in Melbourne because it's not my style. It doesn't make me feel confident. It doesn't make me feel stylish. It doesn't make me feel like Sally. So why, just because I'm going traveling to X, Y, and Z, would I pack things to I think the easiest way to compare it is, I think so many of us pack to be tourists. We don't stop and pack a wardrobe that feels like us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. When I was reading it, I was like, I can see exactly where you are. You don't want to overload your bag. I have been a chronic overpacker, but then I fight that and I end up veering the other way and having almost nothing and going, how did I end up with this? I mean, yes, that is a great excuse to go shopping in the destination you're in, but also
true.
That is not a sustainable way to travel. And if you travel a lot and we travel, I travel a lot for work, I can't just keep shopping the world, as glorious as that sounds.
That's true. But the irony of what you just said, Belle, is that this method that I have now used twice, including, so I've done it for a 2-week vacation in predominantly Greece. I was in Greece and Turkey in June this year, and I've just come back from 3 nights and 4 full days in Tassie, in Hobart, so winter. And I use this method called the sudoku method. And so the irony of what you just said is it actually forces you to take essentially kind of 9 pieces of clothing, plus plus maybe your shoes, a scarf, whatever. But it is amazing when you use that method and you do it strategically, how many options you actually have, even though you've only got 9 pieces of clothing. It is unbelievable.
So just a little bit about the Sudoku method, because it seems that you're an
Yeah,
absolute convert on it. So you draw yourself up a
I
you put
am.
yeah, I was looking at the joy, awe, and wonder on your Instagram page going, "Oh my goodness, you've got to try this."
Yeah,
And I am totally like, I'm like, right, that's it. I mean, admittedly, I think my next trip is going to be Stockholm in the middle of winter, so that's going to be an interesting one. But
no doubt. It is. It would be a trickier proposition in wintertime, but because I think there's also like there's the method that I personally have used to also take carry on, which is also a game changer. But that's not a fait accompli. Like that's not a hard and fast rule about it. It's just about narrowing down, giving you a template, giving you a starting point. So yeah, so the Sudoku is. I mean, I've never played a game of Sudoku in my life, but
no,
from what
I
I
haven't either.
understand, it's a grid of 9, a 3 by 3 grid. And so what you do, so for example, this weekend, you take basically 3 tops, 3 bottoms, and then 3 layers or kind of outerwear. So, and when you put them on the grid, no matter which way you go, they all go together. So that's not just to say that you just grab 3 random tops out of your wardrobe, 3 random bottoms. That's not how it works. But it because you can only take 3 tops or 3 bottoms, you start to be more strategic because you're asking yourself as you're choosing them and maybe laying them on your bed, or like I do, I just use my Instagram app to organize it. You can kind of see that, oh yeah, that goes with that. Oh, that goes with that. I know that's even though I like that, that's an outlier because it only goes with that. Trust me, it's somehow magically, Belle, I don't know how, but it magically works. And you can see how I've used it for both a summer holiday and a winter holiday. But as I say to people, it's just a starting point. There's no rules. If you want to add an extra dress or an extra pair of shoes or, 4 bottoms, like no one's stopping you at the airport. And, say, oh, out you go, sorry, you can't come in. You've broken the Sudoku packing rules. But it's just for people like you who feel the overwhelm with packing. I definitely recommend to give it a go.
Yeah, it's interesting because I realized when I was reading about your approaches to it that the trap that I fall into is I've got a shirt, I love it, like I adore it, and I put it in because
Yeah,
because I love it. It's not because it goes with
yeah,
anything else in there. And when I wear it, it kind of makes
yeah,
me happy. But I am not working
yeah,
it in with the rest of my packing strategy. And I think I pack for the individual pieces I love, and I'm not creating that
yeah,
grid and creating those looks, which you say has actually cut down your decision making in the mornings as well. Which is important because especially if you're on a
absolutely.
guided tour and you've all got to be in the lobby at 7:30 having breakfast and out the door.
Exactly. And I did a follow up, a few weeks after I got back from first using the method. And that's exactly one of the benefits, one of the pros. I can't think of any cons, but one of the pros was exactly that. Because you take less clothes, you've got less to pack away, less to unpack, and again, less overwhelmed day to day. It just made getting dressed easy, but also I was kind of a little bit smug. Oh, look at this, a new outfit every day. So I've just been away with 4 girlfriends. Basically, 3 of us use the Sudoku method just to pack. Like they've all just become converts. And no outfit repeating for 4 whole days.
It's
We would just
fantastic.
come out every morning. Oh, what have you got on next?
Okay, that's amazing. I think I might do that for if I
Yeah,
have another tour with people. I'll be right. Everybody. In fact, I will sack them if they don't follow the method. I'm definitely going to give it a go. Um,
yeah,
let's talk about plain fashion. I have some very strong opinions on this. I
yes.
do. I am always curious of the fact that we all look like we're about to run a marathon. What is your what? Like
Or go to sleep.
literally, I mean, it's taking athleisure to a whole new level or activewear. What do you wear on long haul flights? And is there something like is it? Do you ever compromise on that, or is this a hard and fast for you?
Yeah. So I also did a post about this about a year or so ago because something popped up on the New York Times and I shared it just on my stories, and the response was just like, "Oh my God, Sally, can you do something about this?" So,
Yes.
whatever, whatever. So I did a video. It went viral, right? Because I showed ideas and suggestions on what you can wear on the plane and still be comfortable. So the one thing that I did notice about flying to Tassie, I have to say, is like, yes, there's active wear, right? But there's also now tracksuits. Everyone's just wearing like hoodies, and trackies. Or particularly for long haul flights, you want to feel comfortable. Again, like I suppose I'm speaking from a different perspective because I am a stylist, and I do like to dress a certain way, but still certainly feel comfortable and feel good about myself. I love anything. I think what makes a really stylish plain outfit, particularly if you're flying long haul, is anything that coordinates. So that could be like a really comfortable, kind of elevated, maybe, it could be a track pant, essentially, with an elasticized waist. But you might wear that with a nice sneaker or a good ballet flat. But then over the top, you could put something little bit more polished and tailored, like a relaxed, oversized blazer, with a t-shirt, and then maybe a knit over your shoulders that you can then put on if you get a little bit cold. But I do think the coordinating sets, whether they're in really whatever kind of fabrication, I think they can look really polished and really classy, but can equally be really comfortable. I mean, let's face it, there's heaps of elasticized options now, particularly post the pandemic, in tailored trousers. A lot of them will have a flat front, but then elastic at the back, so they're nice and comfortable. But the other thing that I always do, and this doesn't, whatever class you're traveling in, take a pair of PJ bottoms or take a pair of leggings to sleep in if that's what you want. You can get changed into them. I know the toilets aren't the biggest place for you to get changed, but I will take a pair of pajama pants, and as soon as we're checked in and the plane's off and the seatbelt signs are off, I'll go to the bathroom and take off my trousers and put on a pair of PJs to be comfortable. So it's not really that hard. But I do think we've lost the plot with plane travel style.
Can I just ask then, put a supplementary question into that? Why would you not just wear the pajama bottoms onto the plane?
Oh, well, I mean, again, okay, I'm going to go back to my, would you wear pajama bottoms to the supermarket?
Well, personally, I wouldn't. I did notice on my last long haul flight that an awful lot of people walking in it, the big fluffy Hello Kitty kind of pajama bottoms, the super fluff ones you pick up for $10 in those nameless stores.
Oh,
So I decided to put a
right.
rule in it. It was that if you can legally order from the drinks trolley, you should not be allowed to walk on the plane on them. But there were battalions of people
Yeah,
in the Hello
that's good.
Kitty
I like
bottoms.
that.
Yeah, so that's my rule on it. I am not one that I did my last the long haul before I was in business, and I did the full. I had a pair of pajamas that were given from an airline. Actually, they were Emirates ones. And they were given to business class passengers. I scored them as a media thing, I'm going to say, full disclaimer here. But it was more like a lounge suit. So, they were
Yes.
kind of elegant. They had a certain drape about them. I've got to say, when I emerged from that horrible little bathroom, I was like, here I am, feeling fantastic.
There's so many nice options, and fabric, as you said, that's fluid, that's comfortable. I just think, yeah, there's nothing wrong with making a bit of an effort, because at the end of the day, how you dress influences the way you feel, which kind of, makes me think about the people who are traveling in their activewear or their trackies. I'm just like, gosh, what kind of goes through your mind to think that that's kind of okay? And I know I'm trying not to be judgy. I get that people are comfortable, but I do think there's a very fine line, and I just think we've just become so casualised, and those standards have really dropped. And unfortunately, that's something that's very obvious when you go to an airport.
Yeah, except for the people that are trying to bid for an upgrade, because I know that the New York Times loves running a story on how to get an upgrade. And the first thing they always say is dress up. And I have seen beautifully dressed people, like, like I'm thinking, wow, are you actually going to sit in that for the next 14 hours?
Yes.
When they're checking in, looking magnificent. And then when they don't get the upgrade, of course, they're back in economy and they emerge from the bathrooms in their double tracky set, still looking great, but not looking as.
But what does
sharp.
that say? What does that say, though?
That says that they were trying to bid for an upgrade.
That's right. But what it tells us is that our clothing is important. Our clothing sends a message. So rightly or wrongly, before we even open our mouths, when we meet new people, when we see them we make a judgment call about how people, something about them based on how they're dressed. So that's I've never heard about that, but that is really interesting, observation, fact that clearly they've made that conscious decision to wear something nice, polished, whatever you want to call it, because they feel that they're going to be treated differently.
Yeah,
I'm going to think about that one.
absolutely. Now, you said you slipped in there that you're actually traveling with carry-on only. Is that right? Or I mean, if I've got
That's
that,
what I did. So my last two trips. So I did the 2 weeks in Greece and Turkey, travel on only. Which was easier, obviously, in summer. So obviously, lots of lightweight clothing. As soon as we got off the plane back into Melbourne, my husband turned to me and said, "We are never traveling with check-in again." So
wow, wow,
because obviously it makes things so much easier when you get to the airport. I had a terrible situation a few years ago overseas where my luggage was lost. So, you don't have to worry about those things happening. But yeah, and obviously Tassie for 4 days essentially in winter was a little bit more challenging. But again, just having that method and being forced to narrow things down really made you make decisions a bit with a bit more intention, I suppose. Even thinking about what was and look, and to be fair, like I flew Jetstar to Hobart and back, and just paid for a flexi fare, which gave me 14 kilos on luggage carry on. So, which is exactly what I had, by the way.
yeah, yes, absolutely.
But I could have checked it in as well.
Got to say, last time I flew to Tassie, for the same amount of time, I went over with carry-on, and then I think I bought all the wine, so I ended up checking it in on the way back. But
Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
so
so that's fair enough. Yeah.
absolutely.
And again, though, like I've had lots of people say to me with this, sudoku, particularly the Europe trip, "But what about shopping?" I'm just like, yeah, but I don't need to do shopping when I'm overseas. I didn't go overseas to go shopping. I went overseas to relax, to unwind, I shop for a living. I don't want to shop while I'm overseas. Do you know what I mean? So we've all got we all do things for our own reasons, and we make decisions to suit ourselves, not anybody else.
So tell us, what is your most bizarre travel experience?
Okay. All right, you ready?
I'm buckled
So,
in.
with a girlfriend, we went to LA, and I think we're on our way to Mexico. And my friend had met this man who had visited her in Melbourne through other friends, and who said to her, "Oh, when you're coming to LA, you're welcome to stay at my place." So, free accommodation in LA, fine. Turns out this guy basically I was trying to think of how to describe him, but basically was like a scammer. Like, as in, he lived his life, like scamming his way into things, like almost like not a fraudster. That's the wrong word, but I'll give you an example, Belle, of while we were with him, a few things that we did. First thing was we went to he talked his way into like a business's office work drinks, so that we could have free drinks and free
Drinks.
food.
Okay.
Does that so that's
Yep.
what he used
Yep.
to do.
Okay.
So I don't know how to describe him but so we did that one night and just,
A
met
chancer.
these random people. Yeah. So that was night one.
Okay.
Night two, he takes us to a performance of Moulin Rouge and taught us how to get in. Now keep in mind, so this was in the early mid 2000s, maybe 2002, 2003. So it was before electronic scanning to go to events. It was just like people sitting, showing you tickets. And this is what we did to get in. So, so you go there when everyone's going in. So everyone's kind of gathering to have their ticket checked. You just start walking. So you approach, but you just turn around. You keep spinning. And because you can't, anyway, and next minute, you're in.
So you just spin your
he
way
did it.
through the
You
entrance.
spin your way through. Then my friend did it, who was much more ballsy, like my friend at the time, very out there. Next minute, she goes through. And then and I was standing out. I'm like, I can't do it. I cannot do this. Anyway, I did it. Next minute, we're all in Moulin Rouge, and then you just wait for the lights to go down. And so that's what he did. Then we went to Disneyland, and he scammed some, so that we could get priority access. Like, weird.
Did you Did you see a whole different side of the world after that? And did you stick to those
It,
techniques, or have you abolished them
no,
from your travel
I
repertoire?
was horrified. I was horrified. I mean, I must admit, my friend and I it did give us, we would just laugh about it for years about, oh my God, remember, I think his name was Todd, but just a very peculiar man. I actually don't remember what he did for a living, but his whole shtick was basically, I know scam's not the right word, get into places without paying.
Wow.
Yeah, to live his life, to eat, to be entertained.
I love
What
it.
a sad
That is,
human being. Anyway, that's my
was he
story.
happy? Was he happy? I mean, he was drinking
I
champagne
mean,
3 nights a week, wasn't he?
yeah, I think he was a bit of a weird bloke. I think he was very shallow and probably very lonely, actually.
Well, he had, for a brief moment, he had two Australian backpackers sharing his life and bringing colour to
He
him. He
did.
probably still talks about you as
He
well.
did.
That is that
I
that
hope
is
so.
curiously random. God, I love travel for the people that you meet on the road. So thanks for sharing that one, Sally.
Totally. So, and it's interesting, isn't it, looking back, I think particularly as you get older, certain things that you did or situations that you found yourself in that you think, oh my God. But anyway, it's
Do,
all the joy of traveling, isn't it?
and do I ever confess that to my child? Which is usually the answer is
Oh,
a hard no. Yeah. Sally, I have absolutely loved our talk. You've thrown down the gauntlet. You've given me the challenge for my next adventure to try those three
excellent.
colours. Yeah, so I'm just going to work out where my love of bright orange fits in with that, and I know that it will because it is that colour that makes me happy. Go on.
So you need to go and have a look at my Sudoku highlight. I mean, it's all on my feed as well. So on my Greece trip, I took a bright orange pair of pants
Yes,
and styled it with everything in my wardrobe. So
I
there you
love
go.
it. Okay, great. I have bright orange pants too. Snap. Like,
Oh,
yeah, there is
have
a
you ever thought to wear bright orange and lilac?
No, I've usually gone the olive route, or if I'm in a very bright, sunny place, white, because then you just like
Yes.
like that. No, I'm going to go
Yeah.
back orange and lilac. No, I've never thought of that.
Really beautiful combination.
Amazing, amazing, and that's why I follow you, is so that it listens and it challenges me as well. So thank you for that challenge, the Sudoku and the three
Thank you.
colours. Amazing, Sally. It's a joy. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
That was stylist Sally McKinnon, and you can read her book Styled or follow her on Instagram at Styled by Sally. Our tip this week is about the best workcations. So new research and data from Global Hybrid Work Leader International Workplace Group has revealed the best workcation cities in 2026. Well, it's 2026 Work From Anywhere report. So these are places that basically are the best places that combine both travel and remote working.
So the research commissioned by IWG found that more than half of workers say that their employer already offers a work from anywhere policy, with employees increasingly looking for destinations that can support them professionally as well as personally. I think
And the
that means
research-
good internet, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, the research found that the impact of actually working remotely is surprisingly overwhelmingly positive. I mean, gosh, isn't that surprising? So 90% say it has improved their work-life balance, and 80% say it's improved their productivity. The policy is also shaping career decisions. I mean, that's a no-brainer too, with 80% saying it would make a new role much more attractive, and 62% saying they would consider changing jobs for a better work from anywhere policy.
So some of the reasons that workers want to take on this role is avoiding burnout and supporting well-being were the biggest reasons workers wanted to extend trips through working remotely. This is closely followed by spending more time with family and friends, making annual leave go further, and financial pressures are also influencing behaviour, with more than half of the respondents saying that the cost of living has made them more likely to use hybrid or working from home policies to extend holidays. And look, we are pretty much practicing what we preach, aren't we? Because I'm going to Sweden in December and I'm going to be working while I'm there. I'm also going to be seeing my family. Is that a classic hybrid working, Kirsty? Like we we pretty much live this whole thing. And I think it's really interesting too, in just to bring it back locally, that Melbourne is also having this big debate about working from home, which has been a right under the old Labor government, and the new one is wrestling with that as well, because I think Melbourne really, loves a good work from home. I don't know. What do you find? Yeah.
I mean, like you said already, as travel writers, we're always working, wherever we go. So we work from anywhere. So we're sort of the experts at it, really. And I think for most people, I think as long as the job gets done, and obviously if you're a nurse or something like that, and obviously there's not sort of an ability for you to be able to work from home because you've got to be interacting and looking and seeing patients and surgeons and people like that. But I think if you can get the job done, I don't actually see why you shouldn't be able to work from anywhere or work from home. I mean, what difference does it really make? As long as you are obviously, you're meeting your KPIs and the job, and it's pretty obvious when the job's getting done, and particularly, I guess, in an industry like ours too. But even brainstorming sessions and things can be done online. So it just saves the commute time. I find that the commute time, like particularly for me, I'm down in the Bayside area of Melbourne, and it can take me, like if I have to get to the northern suburbs, which I did work up there for a while, it was an hour and a half each way. So that was 3 hours out of my day. So when I was working in Fitzroy, I was, from the minute I left home to when I actually got into the office, it was an hour and a half. So that's a really long time, and just generally for your own well-being, if you can get up and take the dog for a walk, and then I'm at my desk now much earlier than I would be if I was having to do that long commute. So anyway, without further ado, the best place for a workcation, according to this research, was Bangkok, thanks to being an affordable, well-connected city, and that was followed by Tokyo and Barcelona.
Porto in Lisbon and Vancouver rounded out the top 5, while Budapest, Naples, Lisbon and Seoul also featured in the 2026 list of leading destinations for workers combining travel with remote working. And there's some fantastic places there.
Asia and Europe dominated the top 10, but Sydney and Melbourne were there too, but they were at 20th and 22nd. That's quite far down the list, really. But they were recognised for having beaches and mountains and national parks, all the things we know. And obviously having we've got pretty good Wi-Fi. Well, I don't know, Belle, you and I have... You and I were just complaining about the Wi-Fi, but, well... So, assuming you have good Wi-Fi, then Melbourne is a great place for a workcation. Next week, I'm chatting to Dr. Stephen Jasper, a former pharmacist who's a recognised expert in the field of jet lag and executive performance, and he's passionate about transforming the conversation around jet lag. We talk about what jet lag actually is, how it affects us all differently, and how to avoid it.
And we'd love it if you followed us on socials. You'll find us at The World Awaits podcast on Instagram, on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And feel free to drop us a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. Or if you are enjoying this episode, please leave us a rating or a review.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.